What's up? Arvindh here, and today I'm going to be telling you and showing you all the stuff that goes into my GMing bag, right? Uh, yes, I use a very retro bag, and I try to take as few things as possible when I go to run a game. The most important thing that I can have is this hat. It's my GM's hat, and I like to use this. Next up is dice, right? So I have about 6 sets that I have for my players. I'm going to see if I can lift them all out. So I have them in these like little boxes, and they have like some really funny names. These are the different dice that I use and I give to my players, right? But I just don't give that. I also have this sort of a thing, right? So this is a tray where it's listed out what is the dice, right? So for example, it's a D4, D6. It's got the slots and it's got the writing over there, and I have like about um, 8 of these that I've 3D printed. I take this because it's very, very useful when I'm playing with new players. And I love to play with new players because they do some of the craziest, most bloodthirsty shit possible, right? So I got dice, then I've got the tray that says, okay, these are the different things. Next, I like to take these kind of paper minis that I've got. All right, you can see them. I got this from Index Card RPG. By the way, I'm a big fan of the system and the creator as well as Runehammer, as you can see, right? So there are a bunch of different minis, and I use them because I can just prop them up, and players can use them. And I ask them, okay, once you have your character sheets, pick one of these minis that looks most like your character. So it kind of gives them that kind of leeway and that little bit of agency. After that, for maps, I've started going away from 3D printed battle maps. I used to do that. Hand drawn maps takes too much of time. Now I just use these kind of cards, right? So this is again from the Index Card RPG. So I have like a bunch of different cards that come in, and I can use these to come up with characters and locations, and I can come up with dynamic maps on the fly. But that's not the only thing that I use for maps. I also use these kind of abstract, I think they're called Montessori cubes or something. I got them on Amazon. And I have a bunch of these flat dominoes that are different colors, right? So I use them to form dynamic battle maps. And this kind of, the cubes thing is very, very useful when I need to, again, come up with maps on the fly. As you can see, I'm really a big fan of making stuff up on the fly, and I find that this is very, very useful. So I use these kind of cubes and these kind of cards for making maps on the fly. Now, speaking of dice, right? I spoke about the player dice, but I also have 3 dice of my own. This is my main D20. I use it all the time. It's nice and big and chunky. It feels heavy, and there's a lot of weight that goes into this. This is even bigger. It's been 3D printed with TPU, and it gives like it's a very tactile thing and feels like very lot of gravitar when I'm coming to roll this. And finally, this one is a D100 with ducks inside. My brother-in-law gifted me this, and he didn't know I was that much into D&D, but he's like, hey, you know what? This will be fun. The funny thing is, at my home game, I have a how ducked are you? Ducked are you roll? And coincidentally, he sent me this D100 with ducks. Higher the roll, greater is the danger, right? So those are my main dice. And if I need the other dice, I ask my players to roll for me. Now, when it comes to my own minions, I have, again, like 3D printed thingies that I got off Maker World. And, I've just got them like colored. So I just pop them up on the ground in my maps because players are represented by these kind of paper standees. And I got these kind of tokens, right? Now, I did have some stuff that I had like painted in the past. Right? I think that's a beautiful snake, and this is a crystal, and I got like a miniature from Yutabumi that I've painted. Again, I'm not a big fan because it takes a lot of time and effort, and I like to focus more in the theater of the mind and improvisation. So whenever possible, I will try to use. But as you can see, I'm mixing, blending, and matching different aesthetics to get the end result that I want. Now, in my home game, I and in other games that I run, I have two cool mechanics. All right, one is that of a curse. I picked it up from this game called Chronicles of Drunagor. Every time the players make a fail, right, they will accumulate what looks like a big orange token. Okay, and the orange token will then be accumulating with the players, and when the final boss fight comes up, I will collect all of them, and the number of tokens that the players have accumulated end up causing or blessing the villain with bonus powers and abilities, right? Like healing potions or benefactor boxes from Dungeon Crawler Carl. Another thing I like is these. Okay, this is inherently Indian. It's a crown or a kridam, as we say in Tamil, and I use this as the antidote, right? So when the players do something ridiculously clever, apart from just giving them an inspiration, I will give them this, right? So it'll be like it's like the antithesis to a curse token, and I like this because I designed it and I 3D printed it. I'm like really proud of it. Now, that's just some of the stuff, right? A little bit more of the other things that I have. This is another deck, and this is when this is again from Index Card RPG, Runehammer Online, if I'm not mistaken. And this is their Think deck, okay? And this is when like stuff's just going like randomly off the rails, and I have like no clue. Then I'll just pick a card at random. So what does that say? It says supreme foe, right? And it's the clubs. So clubs is usually like a beast thing. So I use this deck to improvise at the table, and I often use this to come up with entire adventures. Right? I use this for my planning as well. Many times I give the illusion that I'm supremely in control and prepared, but more often than not, I have this deck and I have an index card. But speaking of index cards and station, I'm going to get there. But before that, one last purchased item I want to show off is illuminated playing cards. But this deck, right, it also doubles up as a tarot deck. And tarot is ridiculously awesome. If you haven't learned how to use it, I highly recommend that you try because it's going to be very useful for you as a DM. This is how they look at the back, and they're both the same deck. But why I want to show you this is because it gives you like an amazing amount of control and leeway as a DM, right? So let's say I draw this, right? So this is the Five of Pentacles, I'm guessing. Sorry, it's the Five of Cups. Now, honestly, I'm a bit rusty with my tarot, but the Five of Cups, right, can signify something. There are four suits, you can match them to anything. But for you, as a game master, what you want to know is what that thing actually means doesn't matter. But the players, they believe it has significance, and therefore it does have significance. Now, right now, if I had to improvise that, let's say, in an earlier video, I'd had an example of kobolds and blink dogs chasing the party down a crumbling cavern. And after they fail to open the door, I'm going to say that, all right, Mingo, draw a card. And let's say he draws the Five of Cups. This is how I would interpret it, right? It could be like an omen where cups means drinking and camaraderie and conversation. And this is a middling card. So I'm going to say, like, okay, that card sets the mood, right? Or it could be that cups, traditionally in tarot, I believe they mean intelligence and stuff like that. And that this is a tricky situation, but the players could use that to, navigate and turn it into their advantage. So the tarot cards can be used as significant things for yourself when you're running the game or for your players as well. All right. So those are the main things. I also have a little bit of memorabilia. I have these origami dragons that I like to put on my DM screen. So speaking of DM screens, I don't use one anymore because I improvise a lot, and I've successfully stayed away from improvising. Like I don't need a DM screen to improvise anymore. And finally, I have this other box that says nutcase. And it's like, I believe Americans call it a Altoid tin, or this is the equivalent. So in that, I have 3D printed runes. Okay. Again, I'll ask players to pick one at random. Serves the same purpose as tarot, right? And it is multifunctional. So I use them to generate names. I use them to describe visions. I use them to describe the flow of adventure. You name it, right? So I do that with this as well. Now, finally, I'm going to come down to some stationery. I like these glasses because I'm supposed to wear glasses, or else my wife scolds me. I have a Ziploc bag full of markers and pens that my players can use. I also have these post-its, which are like the wide ones. Occasionally, they come in handy to for me to like stick up rules. But my best friend are these colored index cards, right? So I write down stuff on these index cards, and then I just like fold it, and then that becomes like a player tracking thing on the ground. I can do that. I can also use it to track other things. I also have a specifically labeled index card called Crazy Shit. This is the way I like to keep fond memories of everything that happens in games. Like for example, at T Talks earlier this year, um, a group of players uh, took a giant rat man, skinned it alive, and then reanimated and turned it into their own skeletal pet. And they used it to ricochet daggers, and they fed it a worm corpse with 4 feet of chain. So crazy shit that my players do. I like to keep track of that. This is my way of collecting memories. And the last thing is this. So you know how I shown these cards, right? So these are generic, but when I have my own hometown, right? For example, I have this thing called Ankolam. That is one city that I've built in my own world. I have another one called Hairavatam. And for each of those, I like to draw these kind of thingies, right? These are hand drawn Sharpies for the city of Ankolam, if you will, right? And then various locations around it. So I plop these out onto the ground, onto the table as a map as well. And that's also used for uh, building out maps and helping players get contextualized to the whole thing. Finally, of course, I have a notebook and I have a pen as well. Now, the main reason I made this video is most DMs are wondering, oh my God, what are all the different things I should have? Well, apart from all the things I've shown here, I would also recommend a few papers, which are, well, for example, I have the starter set because it's got like a bunch of different like spells and stuff like that in the back. It also has an explainer about the conditions. Same thing with the LMOP, Last Minds of Phandelver. This was the first module that I ever ran. I also made this thing. It's basically a cheat sheet on how to play, right? It's very useful when you have like new players coming in. So I often have that. And for my adventures, for some of them, I tend to, write down clues because I like to run murder mysteries. So I have those as notes. I also have printouts of various spells. But the cool thing is, and I highly recommend it, right? If you can go to this gentleman's website, Joe Natoli, he's got a bunch of like third level pregens that have been made. And the cool thing is, apart from that, at the back, he's also like um, collated all the, what do you call that, spells and spell descriptions and whatnot, right? So it's very useful. So as a pregen, and I usually just run third level games, uh, having all the spell descriptions, and in one single sheet, along with the character sheet, makes it super duper useful. So there you have it, folks. A bunch of different stuff, and I've just opened the kimono, so to speak. And I hope that this video was useful. If you have any questions or recommendations, please drop them in the comments, drop them in the doobly-doo, and I'll be more than happy to get some answers. All right. See you in the next video. Cheers.